Well, Hawksbee and Jacobs here on talkSPORT. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, because we've been reporting it throughout the day here on talkSPORT, Somali referee, one of the top referees in African football, Omar Artan, has been refused entry to the United States. It seems he had a special visa because there were some concerns, I think. Somali's on the ban list in the USA, but obviously exemptions they felt had been made. But when it came to it, Omar Artan was not allowed into the country.
He's issued a very gracious statement wishing his colleagues well and saying he's going to carry on concentrating on becoming his best referee. I feel sad for him. It's really sad.
I mean, the reason he's been refused entry is nothing to do with his ability as a referee.
No.
He doesn't need to improve what he's doing. That's not. You're right. It's a very humble statement. Also, we've seen some footage of the treatment of the Senegal players and the Uzbekistan players, which isn't the kind of welcome you'd expect as a visiting nation at a World Cup. Christina Unkel is our refereeing expert here on talkSPORT for the World Cup and a former referee. She joins us now. Hi, Christina.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon. Good morning here, but good afternoon to you all.
Thanks for joining us.
Saw your tweet earlier on, which is why we'd like to have a chat. You're obviously very disappointed and upset that Omar Artan's not been allowed to referee at the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different layers to be had here. And I'm just going to start off with just the natural human piece of to be an official at the World Cup. This is not a 4-year endeavor. This is an 8-year, 10-year endeavor. You have so much personal sacrifice of your time, time with family. Usually you end up sacrificing your job to pursue something that's never confirmed, right? You're only as good as your last game. And this is the 2025 CAF Referee of the Year, more than well-deserved, first Somali referee to take charge of a World Cup. And particularly, and I've said this before to others, offline, is there are certain countries I would not go into unless I was going on behalf of FIFA, because of FIFA's ability to get and ensure that your visa regulations and that you'd be safe and that, there would be no issues entering the country. So, for Omar, knowing that, yes, his country is on the banned list that the current administration has put. But usually when you typically go through FIFA, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're going to be going through, right? The proper channels, the accreditation, the certification. There's usually a front line to the immigration process in that way, particularly from a situation of, great stead. So it made me incredibly sick. It went through the referee community. The referees have been in camp since this past Sunday, so over a week in Miami. But that news circulated very, very quickly within our community that this individual, not because of anything he's done, not because of a past history, but just because he's being stereotyped from a country that he's at, is not allowed to come into. It's not a World Cup if you don't allow the world to come in. Very disheartening.
My immediate reaction, I totally agree, Chris. My immediate reaction is that FIFA, what they generally do, and a World Cup's on in a country or a couple of countries, they take over. They're almost like the government. They're in charge, but we're not seeing that this time. I think a lot of it has got to do with Infantino's relationship with the president and this administration, which I don't think is particularly helpful to this, because FIFA have been quick to say, well, in line with other World Cups, we would never get involved in other countries' immigration policy. But I totally agree with you. They normally rule the roost, and if they wanted this to happen, you kind of sense they could make it happen, which is doubly disappointing.
Well, it's actually interesting you say they rule the roost, because we saw a lot, at least here internally, these stadiums are owned by cities, they're owned by counties, private, equity. And it's been interesting, where some stadiums have won the bids, yet they were also considering of retracting and coming out and standing out. So, typically a World Cup, when you're hosting it from an economic impact, I know that we do that review here in Tampa Bay, you lose money on some of these events actually when you allow FIFA to rule the roost, because there are a lot of, particularities that they request, taking ownership of an airport. And that, it probably also doesn't help that, football, or here in the United States called soccer, isn't one of the top 3, let alone top 4 sports in the world. So where the rest of the world, where FIFA would probably be having more ability and autonomy, here in the United States, they've seen a lot of pushback. And for American fans, particularly soccer fans who are trying to grow this game, it's very disappointing to say, welcome to the world, yet now we're getting pushback. And now we're showing why, unfortunately, the United States isn't equipped to host a tournament of this magnitude, of what is needed to be able to host a tournament of this magnitude.
And what about the pictures we've seen of the Senegal players and the Uzbekistan players on the tarmac being searched in a way that I'm guessing not all nations have been.
No, it's embarrassing. There's no other words to say it, but it's just completely embarrassing. One can have administration and your regulations, but there's a way to have a human rights component to it, right? Instead of keeping them on the tarmac, right? If there are certain protocols that need to be jumped through because of the administration, and obviously many of these people executing these protocols aren't part of the decision-making process, there's still a way to do this that's incredibly respectful, right? There's a way to bring them into, the facilities and to do inspection and check. And once again, it's not lost on me on what countries. It's not lost on many Americans. I need to qualify that, right? There are many Americans who do not agree with this process of what's going on. And it's just, again, it's a reminder that, and it's unfortunate, particularly for this building the game here in the United States, the chances of us hosting another World Cup after we've had this experience, we just see that opportunity go away.
Yeah.
Well, look, hopefully next time we'll be talking about the referee, and I'm sure we will be, Christina. But we appreciate you joining us today, and we will catch up with you during the tournament. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Christina Unkel, our refereeing expert throughout this World Cup here on talkSPORT.
There's two marvellous bits of news. The FIFA have just announced their crypto partner for the tournament.
Yeah, that's get our priorities
so that's
right.
what we need. And you can have shout-outs for money. You can pay and have your name on the scoreboard for $79. That's very reasonable of them, isn't it?
Fantastic, yeah.
The Grifting World Cup.
The beautiful game. Good old, hashtag worse than Blatter. We thought we'd never see it, but somehow we have.
Yes.
Phil Nichol, comedian, joins us. Of course, the World Cup's happening in Canada as well, and that's where Phil was born in Scotland, but was brought up in Canada. Will be joining us for a chat. He's also an Evertonian, and we're going to be inside the England camp with Jonathan Northcroft, the co-author of a new book, taking us behind the scenes and the changes Thomas Tuchel made and the things he has learnt in his time as the England manager, which will hopefully benefit the team as they go to the World Cup. That's all to come, amongst a lot of other things as well. Just to remind you, George DeBell from The Cricketer joined us earlier on and told us his understanding was that he feared that Ben Stokes was going to step down as the England captain and quite possibly walk away from the England team completely. We're keeping an eye on that for you, and we will bring you that news if it does happen as soon as we get it. But we'll get the sports headlines next.